I've had an abiding interest in the Holocaust since I was a teenager. I was one of those girls that picked up the Diary of Anne Frank and was completely absorbed. And then I started reading other memoirs like the one by Esther Hautzig called The Endless Steppe, which is not one of the most famous ones. But I found these stories of these young women heroic and tragic, and I really wanted to know more. So on my own, I'd read a lot of survivor literature about the Holocaust, even though I never took a German history class and I never took a class on the Holocaust. So when I was asked to teach the class in 1993, I said, of course, and I spent the summer before I started that class watching all 9 hours of Claude Lanzmann's Shoah and reading Raoul Hilberg's The Destruction of the European Jews, which was the very first comprehensive history of the Holocaust that came out in 1961, I think. And I thought, I have a lot to learn. So when I put together my course, I think about both the history of the subject and its reception. The reason I call this class The Holocaust in History and Memory is because my biggest question about the past is always, when and how do people care enough to remember something? So why have people chosen to remember the Holocaust, and why has it become so important in American society? So important, in fact, that when I was in college in the 1980s, there were very few schools that were offering courses on the Holocaust. And yet by now, you would find there's probably not a single college in the country that doesn't offer one. That's an enormous change. How did that happen? I like to say I'm not an expert on the Holocaust, but I've been teaching the class for 22 years. And one of the best things that's happened as a result of that, for me personally as a scholar, is that it raises questions for me that I've been able to work into my own research. So I've written 2 articles that address the issue of photography of the Holocaust, specifically atrocity photographs taken by the perpetrators. What role should those play as evidence, as witness? Should we be looking at them now? How are we going to take responsibility for the kind of knowledge that we're going to get from looking at photographs that were taken against the will of the subjects? So I've written about that, and I would never have come to this subject if it hadn't been for teaching the Holocaust class over the years. So if somebody asked me, why would I want to take a class on the Holocaust? That's such a depressing subject. I think I already know enough. I don't need to know anymore. Then I would say to them, do you think it's important to remember? And I guess they would probably say yes. And then I say, well, how are you going to act on that responsibility? So for some people, knowing more about the Holocaust is ethically important. It matters at that level. So it's important that you take responsibility for what you know, and that what you know is accurate, and also that what you know is something that you could explain to somebody else, to a kid. If you want to be responsible for passing this memory on to the next generation, what are you going to tell them? How are you going to tell it to them?